Hi, this is Five from Scrappy Mania, and today I'm going to go and show you what you can do with your distress watercolor pencils. I have a limited budget. I try not to buy too many stuff, so I don't have all the distress ink line or the sprays or anything. And when these came out, I do like crayons. When these came out, Tim Holtz was showing the color that came out of these as watercolor and also as straight pencil. And then he was comparing that color with the distress inks and also distress oxide, and they all looked very similar. So I figure if I get the 3 sets, so I got, this is set 1, this is set 2, actually this is set 2, and this is set 3, so I got all these for I think $75. I figure I can use these to do the same effects or similar effects as if I had the inks, because I can use this and rub it on my stamp image and use that to stamp on, and it will look good. I can also, when I sharpen these, I can use the pieces or the shedding of the pencil and then mix it with water, put it in a little spray bottle and use it as a mister, and then I have a similar distress mister. And also I can just use it as straight on paint. So the first thing I want to do is I haven't tried it out yet. I've used it to color in images, and I love it. They work very nice. But let's say I want to go ahead and use it to like if there were my distress inks and I want to use it for this stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and put this big old stamp image on this block, and actually I don't have a big enough block, so let me go ahead and find a larger block that I can put this on, and then we're going to use this on some white cardstock. So I'll be back. Okay, so here I put my stamp onto my Real Memory stamping platform, and then I'm going to use some colors. So I'm going to use red, some yellow, some green, this other green, and I don't want to use the other set in case you only have one set. Let's use some brown. Okay, so let's see how this works. So I'm just going to get my first one. So let's put some yellow down here. And they say you can dip it, so you can dip it with water and see it becomes like ink. You can do that. And I'm going to dip this in a little bit of water, put on the edges, dip this in water, and do the roses and these flowers. So I'm pretending this is kind of like ink. And I'm not using, I saw them doing this technique with a rubber stamp, but I want to use my acrylic to see if it works with acrylic. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and use green. Use some of this green, sage green, for these leaves. Okay, I'm going to use some of this other green. This is peel paint. And just put some on these flowers. Doesn't seem like I'm doing much, so let's see what happens when I do stamp it. Okay. And then let's go ahead and quickly adhere my cardstock. And then let's go ahead and press this down. And the good thing is, because I'm using a stamping platform, if I need to re-ink it, so let me go ahead and not re-ink, but puts a little bit more color. And a little bit more around here. Okay, let me use my sprayer this time. Fine mist. Use a fine mist sprayer. And let's try this again. Oh, that looks good. Let me go ahead and re-stamp in some areas that I feel like I should be re-stamping. And maybe right here. I want a little more color there. More color around here. Maybe more definition on this side, these areas. And then a little more yellow. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, think is good enough. If I missed it real good, I can probably get a second impression on something else. I'm going to leave this alone. I don't want to mess it up. But I might just... Actually, let's just bring it to... Let's go and do it this way. And I'm just playing to see how it comes out. That's not bad. You can use that for a card. Not bad. I'll let that dry. And then we'll just need to clean our stamp. So let me go ahead and clean my stamp, and then I'll be back. So I'm bringing back my image here, and I got some water. Well, the next technique I want to do is I want to fill it in these areas with a little bit of watercolor. I'm using a synthetic brush because I don't want to pick up too much of the watercolor, because this is not watercolor paper. Now, you'll have better results if you use watercolor paper, but let's see if we use just cardstock, because sometimes we don't want to use our watercolor paper for our cards. We want to use cardstock. So I'm going to scribble all the colors that I used on the sheet that came in my package. So each package, you have a protected sheet, as you can see here, which also you can use it as your palette as well. And that's what I'm using right now. I'm using it as a palette. So it's very easy to take this on a crop or take it with you when you go on vacation or anything like that, because you just take the container, a little bit of water, and a paintbrush and some cardstock, and you're fine. If you want to use stamps, you can as well. Bring in my water and a paper towel, and I'm going to liquefy these. Gonna put some excess, and then I'm just gonna put it on my cardstock like you see here, leaving some areas where I'm going to leave white, and if I want a little more color I can go over it on that area, and then done. Don't go over it too much because you're going to start picking up paper. This is not watercolor paper, so you want to go ahead and be very careful when you use this. Let me use with water and just put a little bit of down here, and I'm leaving the top area. I'm not putting a lot of ink, so it's a little darker on the bottom than on the top. Pick up a little more and then start from the bottom and drag it up like so, and then quickly go up. And see how that looks? That looks really good. This one might be a little darker on the edges here, so I'm going to do a little darker on the edges and then put a little more on the edges here, just quickly and very lightly. That's it. So that's kind of in the back, and see how beautiful that looks. The same thing here, just a little bit on the edges and then quickly move it up like so. And see these edges right here, because I did use my crayons, I can go over it slightly on the edge and make it a little darker like that. And because I'm using a synthetic brush, it doesn't retain a lot of water, which is nice. So every time I pick up water, I want to blot some it off, because I don't want it too much on my paintbrush. You'll mess up your watercolor, your paper. Now there's not a really good distinction between these two here. So what I can do is I can pick up a little bit of pigment and just go over here like so, and then blot it off and just blend it real quickly like so. Okay, and leave it alone. You don't want to put too much, but that gave it a nice little break. So you can see that it's darker here, so it looks like you can tell that petal is behind this petal. And then you can put a little more here. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get some water, take it off, and just really quickly spread it up on the leaf. And then it needs a little more darker down here. So I picked a little more paint and then quickly just bring it up like so. Okay, this one needs to be a little more darker. Let's go ahead and put
Mr.
more.
Jones and similar songs on Amazon Music.
Okay. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of water on here. And let's pick it up. Let's put it at the edges and then quickly bring it up. Okay, and then this is the last one. Rinse my paintbrush, pick up the remainder of the color, and just put it at the edge there. And I want to bring a little more color, so I'm going over here and picking up a little bit on my tip. And there's enough water on the paper remaining that it's going to blend nicely. And I may want to blend a little more here. And there you go. Now what I want to do for the center, I'm going to liquefy some of this paint. I'm going to blot it off, and I'm just going to put some at the edges here, like so. Okay? Rinse it off. I'm going to take some yellow, blot that off, and just put some around here. Okay. And see how that looks. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some color around here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and color this flower. So I might create an orange. So let me see, put some more of this red, and let me mix it a little bit of orange, and look, it made like a pretty color there. And now let's go ahead and put that color onto my rose here. And you don't have to fill the whole thing up. Leave some white areas. Again, don't want to put too much water because this is not watercolor. And then if you want to give it a little more definition, so I can pick up some more of this pinkish red color right here, and then dab off the excess, and then on the edges I may want to put some of that color just on some of the edges. In the center usually are darker than in the edges. Now I put too much here, so I don't like those hard edges. Pick up some water, take the excess, and then blend it like I did there. Again, you got some hard edges here, and just blend it with some clear water and see how that looks better. So you can put a little bit of here. Rinse off your brush, get the excess out, and just blend it. Just blend the edges, get some water, and scribble. Okay, so I think I'm done with that, and see how that looks. Then we're going to start addressing the leaves. So for the leaves, got a little bit of green here. And we're going to use a little bit of green. Let's start a new green color here because I want a little darker green. So now I'm going to take some of this brick, red fire brick, and mix it. See how you mix it with the green. And it makes like an olive, more olivey color. And then here, I want a little more green. Okay. Now that we have our color that we want, we're going to go ahead and put it on the leaf. And while it's still wet, you're going to pick some of the darker color and just put it on the edges like so. And then see how it gives it dimension and not too much water. So make sure you don't have too much water. Because then that was gonna, this is not watercolor paper. And I'm just gonna, since it's still wet, I'm just gonna pick up some of this brown color. It's not brown, it's called fire brick. Fired brick. It looks more brown to me. Let's see, that looks good. I like that. Oh, I forgot to color this area here. This is actually a leaf. I mean a petal. And then I'm just going to pick up some pure pigment and put it at the edge here and just bring it up. Okay, that's it. Oh, let's make a point. Okay. I'm going to pick up some more of this green. Put it on this leaf. I'm going to drop some of this color that I made with the fire brick and my green color. And make some shading. Then I'm going to hit the edges with a little bit of my damp brush to blend it in. Okay. Going to do the same thing here. You don't need watercolor paper actually, but you just need to learn how to use your watercolors when you don't have watercolor paper because you don't want it to peel. So you got to be a little more extra careful. And right here, see how this blends? You don't see a good edge. So I'm going to go with my fire brick and give it a little more shadow to this leaf so that you can see a distinction there. And I can even go with this pure pigment with the green and just create that definition with my leaf. So there, we're going to leave that alone. Now we're going to address these leaves. Okay. And see, my paper is buckling, so I'm going to show you what to do if that happens, how to flatten your paper. So I am going to go ahead and do the same thing here. Put some, lay down some of this peeled paint. So this is peel paint. And then some more peel paint there. And then I want to go ahead and give it a little bit of this brown. And I'm going to put a little bit more. It is here. And see, I'm doing it very lightly, stroking up. I did not pick any more water. Now I'm picking water, but I'm going to blot most of it off, pick a little bit of paint, and just slightly, very light-handed, I'm going to put some of this fire brick at the edge of my leaf. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Now for these, I'm going to see, what do I want to do for that? I think I'm just going to go with really concentrated pigment. And I'm just going to go over the leaves here, like so. Okay? And let's do the same thing here. And right here, we're going to put a little more paint. And more paint here. Okay. Look how that looks. I like how that looks. And then there's one of the things I want to address with you is that when you do use this technique that you're not using watercolor paper, your paper's going to warp. You see the back, it looks warp. The front, it's warp. So how I fix that, so let's go ahead and clean our palette. So the palette's easy to clean. Just take some water and you can just clean your palette and then make sure you dry it up. What I like to do before I put my lid on my crayons is I like to leave it open. I'll set it aside, let it dry completely. I'm going to let my palette dry completely because I don't want to have the possibility of leaving moistures in these tins. So that's what I'm going to do. But let me move this aside. What I want to show you is how do you flatten this panel. So the way to flatten this panel is you're going to get a craft iron. So I have a nice little craft iron and you're going to iron it out. So I'll be back. So here's my craft iron, and this is not the best craft iron there is. This thing comes off all the time. I use it because I found it in a craft store. It was on sale. I bought it. But if you can find a Goodwill mini travel iron, it would be better. So then this is a piece of flannel underneath. Actually, I have batting underneath with this is a pillowcase. And I just wrapped around a piece of wood that I had lying around and then just wrapped fabric around it. And this is my ironing board for my paper projects. So you heat up your iron and then you turn your paper over. And if you're worried about transferring the ink or the paint to your iron here or to your ironing board, you can always put an extra sheet of paper in between, and that way it protects the surface of your ironing board. But since I'm not worried about it, I only use this for crafting. I do recommend that you do not use your regular ironing board that you use your clothes with to do this. So create a small one like this and use that. So I am just going to iron. Now I saw another person, Yamanas. So I saw somebody else on YouTube in where they used the Spellbinder Glimmer foil platform, the machine. They heat it up and then they put the paper in there and heat up the paper on that platform. And that seemed to work very well. But I'm not gonna, it's too much hassle for me. To me, it's easier just to do this than to get that. And see, some of it was not completely dry. So you want to make sure this is completely dry, so that way you don't get what I got here. I got some smudges, but it's okay. I'm fine with that. I never get a really perfect flat surface. What I do get is not as wrinkly as before. So it's a little flatter, as you can see here, but not 100% flat. It just does a little bit of ironing it out, but it doesn't put it back to how when you first started using it. So now I'm going to bring my platform back, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to restamp it with ink. I'm going to use a different, maybe black, or actually I might use gray. So I'm going to place this down so it won't move. I'm going to bring back my stamp image, and then I'm going to make sure, put it back in place. Let's go ahead and pick it up. And then I'm going to use, not going to use black. Let's start with gray first and see how I like it, because you always can stamp on top of it with black. You can just never lighten it up. You can always make something darker, but you really cannot make something lighter. So I'm going to start with this gray color. And just because I want to give these flowers a little more definition. I'm going to go ahead and stamp it. And I think I like that. It just looked a little too light for me, but I think after putting some gray, this is Morning Mist Vesterfine. I do like that it does give me a nice little outline, but not really a strong outline. Now it was a little off, as you can see there, but I'm happy. I'm not too sad that I'm off just a little bit. It does look pretty nice, especially this center. Look how nice that looks compared to how it was before. So I'm going to go ahead and put this away. And I think that's it that I wanted to show you. So you can get more for your buck. So look how beautiful that looks. So we were able to use our distress markers to stamp the image first, then watercolor it. We were also able to get a second impression, so that looks good, like a background on a card. This was just plain. I was playing with it. And then in hindsight, if I would have known, because I didn't know if I was going to do the outline, but we could have done the outline first with this and then use our distress ink to color it. But I do like the ability that I was able to use my distress ink as ink pads, because I just put this on top of the acrylic and I was able to get a nice little outline where I could color, and then I went on top of it. So either way that you want to use it, but I think this product, the distress crayons, are very good, especially for those of us that don't have the whole distress collection. I think having these crayons extends the ability of having some of those distressed colors that we don't have, and then being able to use it as a stamping ink, also as watercolor. And if I wanted to, I can also probably use it as dry crayon. So if I want to go on top, I can do that too. See how you can go on top of it and give it a little more shading if I want it. Very lightly, so notice how I'm doing here, very light. Look how that's looking very nice. So you can also use it as a crayon. And you can see the crayon or the marks, and I like that. You can see that little mark around it, you know, the roughness of the paper comes through when you use it as a crayon. That looks good. So let's go ahead and use the green. So let's see how it looks if I do a little bit of green. Okay, you give it a little bit, you can see the texture of the paper. And always use a light little touch. I'm using a light touch. And let's go ahead and put a little bit here, very light touch. I'm barely touching the paper. Then I'm going to go with this. And I think that's it. Okay. So I'm happy with what I got. So I hope you liked this video, and thank you for watching. Bye now.